As I look back upon my illustrious career, I only have two regrets. The timing of my crypto investment and using too much reverb on everything that I did early on. It's actually kind of embarrassing listening to what I thought the appropriate amount of reverb was for an acoustic guitar, that it's hard for me to listen to a lot of the recordings that I did back in the day. So we're going to set the record straight today, just about reverb and acoustic guitar, okay? I'm going to use the Fishman AFX Acoustiverb for this because I think it does it right. It has the three main reverbs that you want to use in a performance setting, okay? So this is a completely dry guitar signal right here. So let's start off by engaging the pedal and having too much reverb. Okay? I think the best way to check, just like quick reverb check for cool guys out there, mute the strings and just hit it, okay? So basically, let's just run through the parameters of this pedal and then we'll talk about the individual reverbs and when you might want to use some of them. So there's a switch up top that has, there's three different settings. You could go either plate, spring, or hall. Okay, so we're gonna talk about the differences between some of these. And then there are three knobs. Why I think this is a good pedal for this demo is because it actually processes the reverb alongside your original acoustic guitar tone. So it isn't really messing with your tone, it's just adding to it. So that's why it has a level knob instead of a dry wet knob. Like sometimes if you see a reverb pedal with a dry wet knob, all the way up means you're just hearing the reverb a lot of the time, and then all the way down means just hearing the guitar, right? So you can dial in the amount with the level. You can dial in the decay time, which basically is how long that lasts. Good example of that would be if we just dial all the way back real quick. See, that's quick, right? Almost sounds like a slap back delay kind of. But I think just to hear the differences between these, we're going to keep the level all the way up, the decay time all the way up, and the tone all the way up, all right? Tone on a reverb pedal I think is very important. And again, this only affects the tone of the reverb. It does not affect the tone of your guitar, just the tone of the reverb signal that is being processed alongside your guitar. Okay, so we'll do some examples at the end with like the tone cut off and the tone all the way on. But basically, this is all the way on the left side. So what you're hearing now is going to be one certain type of reverb. So what you're hearing now is going to be a spring reverb. If you have like a small Fender combo amp, basically those have spring reverbs built into them. The origin of them is just basically a transducer going through an actual spring, like a coil, into like a speaker, and then you get a certain type of sound. So I'm going to go through just these three settings, spring, hall, plate, and then we'll talk a little bit about each of them after that. All right, so let's start playing it. Hall. Again, this is emulating just like the sound of like a big church hall or something like that. So there's a little messier, which we'll talk about, and then finally plate. Okay, this is like an artificial room essentially. Okay, so depending on how you dial it in, I kind of have different favorites. I think that overall, the plate is probably my favorite if used correctly, okay? So what I mean by that, like we're gonna stick on plate. I guess I didn't have the decay time all the way timed out, but I'm gonna bring the level down kind of severely, okay? So you can still hear it pretty well. So I almost want to get it to the point where I can't totally hear the reverb. There we go. See how like I can still hear mostly the upfrontness of the guitar, but having a plate just kind of gives it a little room to breathe is kind of like the way that I see it. And especially for playing live, it just does a great job of like getting rid of that dry sound. Also, plates sound really good on vocals too. So to me, that just kind of opens the sound up. And again, back in the day, I probably would have had it like way up here. And then you can kind of hear, specifically with the hall setting. In fact, let's go back to hall. This is actually a good example of maybe like how not to use a reverb. As you may have already kind of heard in the first example, when you're emulating a big room like that with a long decay, like I said, the spring and the plate are not emulating a room. They're just kind of like its own thing. Like plates became really popular, I think back in like Abbey Road had one of the first plates, like all the Beatles stuff and Pink Floyd stuff. That's like really famous plate reverb type sounds. Now a hall, you're hearing all the reflections from everything. So if you're playing, you know, I just played a C major 7 chord. Let's say I have another chord right after that that might even be in like a different key. Now it's like a mess at the end. So that's kind of why you want to dial back a lot of these reverbs, and a lot of people use it too much. See, as an effect, it's a totally different ballgame. I think what I like about this pedal is like even with everything dimed out, it's still pretty usable. For a hall specifically, I would probably decrease the delay time. So like, see how it like dissipates a lot faster? So, you know, it sounds cool. It just sounds like you're playing guitar in a big room. And then keeping those same settings on maybe a plate, which I think overall, like I said, is my favorite. See how that kind of has that quick, I just feel like it blooms, but it's also a little tighter. It doesn't have like all the reflections of like a hall as much as the hall. But again, I would probably bring the level way down. See right there, it kind of has like a thickness to it. And then without it, see how dry it is without it? So let's bring it up, the level up a little bit more, and then bring that tone down, okay? So like... and then tone all the way up. And I think you can kind of hear that there is, you know, there's a tonality difference in just the reverb itself. When you're playing more of like a busy type thing, you're not going to notice it as much. But if you have like... it kind of has more of a snappiness to it. So let's bring that tone down. Let's try the same thing all the way down. See how it's kind of like... So, you know, that just kind of has a little bit of the openness, but maybe not as like much of the high end on the reverb, right? Because essentially if we are adding an extra signal alongside it, all those frequencies are being added along with it. So if you cut the tone, then you're maybe just getting the, you know, the lower part of the side-by-side addition, right? So just some other tips. Sometimes I think when you're thinking of using it in a live context, a lot of people always think, oh, I need like a big, long decay. I just need a lot of reverb. And I think like the misnomer there is just having like a super long release time or decay time. Whereas again, so like a plate with a level, even a level up all the way, and then decay time down. That's still too much, because if I'm hearing it while I'm playing one thing, then that's kind of my indication that I need to bring it back a little bit. Because especially for a live context, you know, there's also going to be, you have to think of it from the audience's point of view. If you're self-monitoring, it's like, all right, well, that's a reverb, but then people in the back of the room are going to be hearing a reverberated reverb, which is something you might want to take into context when you're actually like playing a show or something like that. But reverbs into reverbs are actually, I think, one of the most beautiful sounds that you can do. So maybe what you do is you just take a pedal or something to go on the end, or you could do it with plugins in a DAW or something like that. But the pedal is nice because you just have that tactile function, and you can also replicate it live a little bit. But what you can do is you can just have the first stage of your reverb just to kind of have it bloom a little bit and not just seem as dry. And that's what I like about maybe just kind of backing off that input, maybe a little bit longer decay time, and then have that. See, when you're doing a fingerstyle thing like that, you can barely hear there's like, oh, you're not thinking, oh, there's a lot of reverb on that guitar. Because everything is so quick, right? But when you take it away, it's like, oh, well, it's definitely better with a little bit of it, right? And then that right there, you can hear that just like is a little bit to maybe kind of open the sound up, make it less dry, make it a little more pleasant. But then let's say I want to add that into another reverb. So I'll just put a little bit more on there to taste. And then now I'll run this through a plugin on top of this to kind of add a reverb to it. So it's like a double stacked reverb. You can do the same thing with like two pedals, right? Although also I will have an affiliate link for this pedal in the description if you guys are interested. But a reverb like this into a bigger texture reverb would sound like this. On a hall setting, right? So again, because these are so short, Travis Bick style, you're not going to hear a lot of the reflections with this much of a time in a hall. Just for posterity's sake, let's go to the spring. So, just, you know, semi-quick video to talk about the different types of reverbs. And again, there's other types too, like if you get into like shimmering and stuff. But this is really just specifically for an acoustic guitar because, like I said, I've played a ton of live shows, and early on I always put way too much reverb. So just think, you know, be a little more thoughtful about it. Try playing it and then do the reverb check just by striking it. And then it's like, depending on your style, maybe you want to back off the decay time a little bit. Or maybe not. Maybe you just want to like have everything be a whole mess, and then don't even mess with your tone and just have a bunch of mid-range and high-end energy just bouncing off each other. and torturing your audience. So thank you for watching. Thank you to Fishman for sending this pedal over. If you have any questions or comments, I'll talk to you soon.